What would you do if someone offered you $50,000 on the spot, but the price was your heart, your trust, and maybe even your future? Stay with me until the end because this story will shock you and make you wonder if true love can ever be bought. And before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel because more unbelievable stories like this are coming your way. Daniel's life had been crumbling piece by piece. And at just 32 years old, he felt as if he had aged decades. A single father of a 6-year-old little girl, Lily, Daniel had already faced more heartbreak than most men twice his age. His wife had left him without a backward glance when Lily was only a baby, leaving Daniel to juggle 2 jobs, endless bills, and a house that never quite felt like a home. But despite the exhaustion, the sacrifices, and the endless nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how he'd keep the lights on, he would look at Lily's sleeping face and find the strength to keep going. She was his reason, his anchor, and his hope. But hope didn't pay rent. Bills piled high, his car broke down, and the restaurant where he worked part-time as a waiter had cut his hours. On the morning, everything changed. Daniel sat in his old truck outside Lily's school, pretending to be cheerful as she kissed his cheek and ran toward her class. As soon as she disappeared inside, his shoulders sagged under the crushing weight of reality. He didn't know how he'd pay next month's rent. That afternoon, fate walked into his life wearing high heels and an air of untouchable confidence. Her name was Isabella Thornton, the daughter of the CEO who owned half the companies in the city. Everyone knew her as the AYS who had it all: beauty, wealth, and a reputation for being icy cold to anyone outside her circle. Daniel didn't even notice her at first when she came into the cafe he worked in, sitting quietly in the corner. But when she beckoned him over with a single flick of her hand, his world tilted on its axis. "Sit," she said, not asked, commanded. He hesitated, glancing toward his manager, but something in her tone made him obey. Isabella studied him with sharp eyes, the kind that seemed to peel back layers of a soul. Then she spoke words that made no sense at all. $50,000. I need a husband. Daniel blinked, sure he had misheard her, but she leaned in, her perfume sharp and expensive, and repeated it. You're struggling, aren't you? I've done my research, your bills, your rent, your hours. I can make it all disappear. All I need from you is your name. Marry me. He almost laughed. It had to be a joke, some cruel trick. Why would the most powerful CEO's daughter in the city pick him? A broke single dad barely keeping afloat. But Isabella's eyes didn't waver. She explained in clipped words that her father's will demanded she be married before her 30th birthday to inherit the company. And with only months left, she was desperate. I don't want a real husband, just someone who can play the role long enough to keep my father satisfied. You'll be paid well, and when the time is over, you walk away richer than you ever dreamed. Think of your daughter. $50,000 could change everything for her. Daniel's first instinct was to refuse. Marriage was sacred to him, not a contract. But that night, when Lily asked if they could buy a bigger bed because the springs in theirs hurt her back, his chest ached with guilt. He stayed awake thinking of the offer, weighing his pride against his daughter's future. And slowly, the impossible became tempting. 2 days later, Daniel met Isabella in her father's towering glass office. She handed him a contract thick enough to choke on and told him all he had to do was sign. He looked at the pen, then at her, then thought of Lily's smile. With a deep breath, he wrote his name, sealing a deal that would drag him into a world he never belonged in. But Daniel didn't realize that behind Isabella's cool exterior hid a woman as lonely as he was, a woman who had been taught that love was weakness and trust was dangerous. What started as a transaction would soon become something neither of them could control. Daniel had expected to feel like a fraud from the very beginning, but nothing could have prepared him for the life Isabella pulled him into. Overnight, he went from scraping together coins at a grocery store to wearing tailored suits and being photographed by reporters. People whispered about the mysterious single dad who had suddenly become the husband of the city's most untouchable heiress. They laughed, speculated, and judged. But what none of them knew was that every night Daniel went home to his daughter and prayed this arrangement wouldn't destroy the little stability he had left. Isabella, meanwhile, remained a puzzle he couldn't solve. She was sharp-tongued, commanding, and seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. But Daniel noticed things others overlooked. How she always looked out of the window when she thought no one was watching. How she flinched when her father's name was mentioned. How her laughter, rare and fragile, sounded like music when she let it escape. Slowly, without meaning to, Daniel began to care. One evening after a staged dinner with her father and his board members, Daniel found Isabella sitting barefoot on the balcony of her penthouse staring at the city lights. She looked smaller somehow, stripped of her armor. "You think I'm heartless, don't you?" she whispered. Daniel sat beside her, unsure what to say. She looked at him then, and for the first time, her eyes weren't icy. They were tired. "All my life, people have loved me for my last name. Not me, just what I represent. I thought hiring someone to marry me would be easier than risking this." She gestured toward her chest where her heart beat wildly. Something shifted inside Daniel that night. He saw not the CEO's daughter, not the AYS with everything, but a woman aching for someone to see her, really see her. And against his better judgment, he reached out and took her hand. But the closer they grew, the more dangerous it became. Her father began asking questions, digging into Daniel's past, suspicious of the man who had appeared out of nowhere. Rumors spread through the media that Daniel was a gold digger, a fraud, and that Isabella was being manipulated. Daniel wanted to walk away, protect Lily from the chaos, but every time he tried, Isabella's eyes stopped him. Then came the day her father summoned him privately. "You think you can fool me? I know you're here for the money." The old man sneered. "But mark my words, if you hurt my daughter, I'll destroy you." Daniel left that meeting shaken, but instead of fear, he felt something else. Resolve. He hadn't meant to fall for Isabella, but he had. And $50,000 no longer mattered. He wanted her, not her money. He wanted a future, not a contract. When Isabella's birthday arrived, the inheritance secured, Daniel expected her to tell him their deal was over. But instead, she stood before him, tears shimmering in her eyes, and whispered, "I don't want this to end. Not the money, not the deal. Us." Daniel pulled her close, his voice breaking. "Neither do I." At that moment, the single dad, who had once been drowning in bills, realized he had gained something worth more than $50,000. He had found love, family, and a woman who finally chose him. Not for what he could give, but for who he was. And as for Isabella, she had gained something money could never buy. Trust, loyalty, and a love that was real. So, would you take the offer if someone told you, $50,000, I need a husband? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that will touch your heart.